I'm a libertarian. What I'm getting is,
Did you vote for Joe Jorgensen or Trump?
Who?
Joe Jorgensen. That was the perfect answer. Thank you.
Well, hello, friends. It's been a while. This is Tyler Yonke, the Libertarian Podcast Review, episode 35. Slugging along here. I've had a bit of a hiatus. I thought I'd talk about a little bit about that. But anyway, welcome. It's a Friday night. It's March. What is today? The 9th? Let's look at it. March 11th. I'm heading to San Diego tomorrow, bright and early in the morning. So if you're in my area and you want to come rob my house, too bad. My son's here and he's got a gun. So not going to happen. What are we going to do today? Look, I have doesn't matter what I do. Go back and listen. You can find out I've been very, very busy lately. So part of that is I just don't have time to put out a podcast, and it's not so easy. And look, what's easy to do is to be a guest on a show. Have me on your podcast. I was actually on Liberty Dad podcast. I'm going to kind of pump that one a little bit here today. I'm not going to play any clips though. I think we'll just maybe pirate that. Sorry, DL, and then issue that out as a separate podcast for y'all to enjoy. But I've been busy. It's easy to have someone on as a guest. It's easy to do all that, but I like to do the clip shows. And so I've been accumulating them over the last few weeks. I've been listening to stuff and I want to timestamp and do all those things, but I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to randomly wing it today. Actually, the first one I have is timestamped. So I have some shows I want to talk about. I want to get some people interested in. And I'm going to play some clips and we're just going to join in progress, clip right into the middle of it, just see what they have to say. I think I just tell you about what I thought of the show itself personally, some other things. So what have I been up to? Well, I went to the Libertarian Convention in Long Beach for California. I didn't make the delegate. It's an interesting process. There was 2 spots they still had to vote for, evidently with some ties and stuff. And I made that list. And then they had the vote for that. I think it was just the executive committee maybe voted for that. I don't know if I made the delegate. Either way, I'm going to go out to Reno. It was an interesting process. It was good for me going down to Southern California, Long Beach. I ended up staying with a friend down there that lives down in the OC. And interesting thing, I didn't tell him what I was headed down there for. And I get down there, he picks me up at the airport, and then he's like, so, what are you here? And I could easily lie because, but I did. I said, I'm here for the Libertarian. And he's like, oh, interesting. Now, this is a guy that's in one of my telegrams that there's like 6 or 7 of us that talk all the time. And I'm very, he knows what I am. He actually knows I'm an anarchist. He didn't know I was there. He goes, Libertarian. He goes, interesting. My wife just did one of these quizzes that says, where are you at on the spectrum? Not autistic, but the political spectrum. And he said she came out as Libertarian. She's all excited about that. And he says, then she gave me the test and I am too. And I'm like, sweet. So we had some conversation about that. And what was interesting, I'm there, I'm in the sausage making portion of the Libertarian Party. And it's, autistic people, it's nerds, it's people that are way too involved, guys with, I don't like your caucus type of things. There's someone puts out a thing about the Mises Caucus and the Nazis. It's just out of control. And I'm start to tell them this, and they have this look on their face. And I'm like, no. These are not the people you talk about that kind of stuff with. You just tell them about the cool stuff, what liberty has to bring. And so we get involved in the Libertarian Party and the Twitter fighting and the podcasts and all this. And the reality is a lot of people out there in the world aren't interested in that crap. They don't care that, some dude has a boot on his head. Well, they actually, they do care. But that's not what they're going to be fighting about. So anyway, that was an interesting prospect. What else has gone on in my life? Who knows? But let's just get into some podcasts. The first one I think we'll talk about here today is the Fifth Column. You've ever heard of the Fifth Column podcast? Well, I have. I enjoy the podcast, actually. And they've had a few episodes here. You've got, let's see who, Matt Welch. Okay, he's a Reason magazine, libertarian-ish. Michael Moynihan, he did some stuff at Reason, but he's kind of out. I don't know where he's lefty, righty. I'm not really sure. And Camille Foster, a little more anarchist guy. But they brought on this guest. His name was Jamie Kirchick, and they talked about Ukraine, the enemy of my enemy, national conservatism. I guess he's somewhat of a righty. He's evidently wrote a whole book about being gay in the capital area. I think he is as well. But I thought the podcast was very frustrating for me because I think he was and we're going to play a clip here where I think he's very disingenuous. about some of the arguments about Ukraine as an example. And when I started to see kind of what is happening here, and it's how some people frame the questions and frame the arguments about Ukraine as an example, it gets very frustrating because I think it's a lot of it's straw man stuff. So let's go to fifth column. He's going to talk about libertarians and all that. And I'm just winging it here. So if I have some technical difficulties and whatnot, well, this is just the way it is. And let's go. Let's play it up. Fifth column, episode 347, Jamie Kirkchick, Ukraine crisis, the enemy of my enemy, national conservatism. Play it away, gentlemen.
And now that you've sent
this is a big
troops in, is that okay? Now we're trying to codify that, and that was the plan from the beginning. I think that's pretty obvious.
It happens a lot in libertarian circles, which I know you're both familiar with, where if you're opposed to a particular military conflict, if you're opposed to the United States getting involved in a military conflict, a lot of people just can't end it at that. They can't just end it at saying, well, America, it's not our business, we shouldn't get involved. They have to come up with some kind of rationale. And so they go above and beyond and basically take on the arguments of the aggressor, right? And so they basically come out defending Putin and saying, actually, Putin's in the right, because the American ally that's trying to get us involved in this conflict, they're the ones who are lying. They're the ones coming up with all these stories of atrocities. But in actual fact, they're the problem. And it's the aggressor who's getting a bad rap. And, you saw this with Ron Paul. You see it with his son occasionally. You see it with Tucker Carlson. And like I would have respect for people who would just come at this from a very intellectually consistent position and say, we don't support the United States getting involved in conflicts overseas, period, end of. That's not my view, obviously. It's not your view, but I can respect that if it's intellectually consistent. Where I have a problem is where you see this with John Mearsheimer, and Tucker and lots of other folks, where they actually have to make the argument, they adopt the argument of our adversaries. And it's a weird kind of, I don't know what explains it. Maybe it makes it easier for them to make those arguments. Maybe it kind of salves their conscience, right? Because to me, if you look very objectively about what's going on right now, it's very clear who's in the right and who's in the wrong, okay? Ukraine's not a perfect country, obviously. Have they made mistakes in this? Sure. But at the end of the day, you have one big bully is picking on a much smaller country that is sovereign and is having its territory stolen from it. And perhaps in order to kind of justify your position of neutrality or not doing anything, in your own mind, you have to come up with these excuses, right? So, well, maybe Putin has a point. Maybe this NATO enlargement was hostile. Maybe the Ukrainians have been, too mean to their Russian-speaking minorities. And you come up, but then at the end of it, you end up basically becoming someone who's justifying really horrible things.
I had a sit down.
I think that the
go ahead, Matt, sorry.
Go ahead.
All right, and I'm not going to play anymore. And then he knocks down the Cuba argument, and in the fifth column, people really don't like that one as well. They talk about it on the next episode with Matt Tybee, who brings it up and uses it as an example, which is, if I'm didn't timestamp it, I was going to look for it, so it would have been great to actually have as a comparison, and then compare Matt Tybbee's there. That's what a quality podcast does. I'm I'm not going to do that. Someday, people, I will get there. But if you heard him there, it's disingenuous. First of all, Mearsheimer, I'd never heard of him. I guess he's out there. He's kind of somewhat prominent. I'd never heard of him until he mentioned him, and then they mentioned him again on the next episode. I guess he came out there and kind of was, look, if you're listening to, that's an example. Well, let's go back. So the Cuba thing. But he says, because that's just not even practical. It's not even going to happen. But I'm like, but it did happen at one point. And the world can change, yes. But you don't just say, since it wouldn't happen, you can't imagine yourself there, because it has happened and it may not happen in the future, I guess. But anyway, it's an odd thing to do, because, and look, what you're saying there is, you're on our doorstep. How are we going to react? And so him, by shutting that down, then he also can shut down Ron Paul, which says, and it's not so much of, and his whole thing, and he keeps talking about here, people being Putin apologists. And that's how so if you demonize them as Putin apologists, then you don't have to worry. He wants to be in the war. Then everybody that's against it is just a Putin apologist. And that's not what you listen to Dave Smith, you listen to Scott Horton, and almost anybody out there. No one's saying, giving Putin, and it would be very libertarian to not allow him to have his agency. Agency is what it is. It's all him. It's all on him. But it doesn't give. It's funny because we are bombing brown people all over the world, and then we get upset when some white guys get into it. and then we're going to a white knight technically for them. So that to me, I think is why everyone brings it up. Plus, you have to understand how we fostered this, and it's not so much to be an Putin apologist, but it's to say, stop the F doing this, back off of this, to stop doing this, because here is a prime example, and you can lay it out. Now, I have this friend, and I want to bring him on. He's more of a lefty, kind of mainstream Democrat. I used to think he was somewhat sensible, but I'm kind of waning on it. And he wrote an article about how this situation happened, and he mentions nothing of our meddling, of pushing and pissing off Putin, but he does give all the credit to Donald Trump for saying things that Putin is happy about. So evidently you go to war because Donald Trump makes you happy about something rather than getting pushed into a corner. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but it would be interesting to once again bring him on. So let's get rid of this one, and we are going to go to the next one with. And by the way, that was a good episode. It's frustrating, but I think those are the kind that you should actually listen to because they make you think a little bit. This is with Matt Tybee. We're just going to join here. Part of this thing. I once again, I wish I could. His was a little different. And by the way, I do like Matt, but for some reason, I don't know if there's some issue with this podcast. He seems to. Kind of stops in his word. I don't know, just like I'm doing. And it was frustrating at that point. So Matt Tybee, episode 348. Once again, fifth column podcast. Join in here with these gentlemen. This is about an hour or so in here. Matt Tybee.
What you all think the end game is here? I have no clue. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. And it's on top of that, it's horrible, and all of the possible endings of the story are terrible. Including if we get involved, that is going to be really bad. I mean, it's
nightmare scenario.
Yeah,
like legitimately a nightmare scenario. And it's not merely that. And I suppose most people listening, especially this far, like have an understanding of what the concerns are. But this is uniquely dangerous given the kind of nuclear dimensions here, and the just general uncertainty of everything. Yeah, it'd be a very bad look.
Yeah, I mean, the nuclear thing, by the way, just one comment on that is that you can do that only so far. And you just have to accept that, and always kind of operate in some sense that like this is bravado and a threat, because you can keep using that, right? I mean, you can roll into Latvia, Lithuania. I'm not saying it's going to happen. It's not going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. Fool's game, I've realized making predictions like this. But just say, nuclear power. There's a certain point when the nuclear power goes so far that you have to say, fuck it, we need to do something about this.
Yeah. It's just what I worry about is the General Buck Turgidson characters in both defense ministries who are going to be like, I'm not saying we're not going to get our hair mussed a little bit, but.
All right. So the reason I kind of played that nuclear just made me think, what about nuclear energy we should be getting involved in? But I wanted to play that there because I'm sure Tybee would be, according to the guy we just heard, Jamie, prior to this, a Putin apologist. But Tybee keeps emphasizing over and over here, Putin's a bad guy. Doesn't then mean it doesn't. And I think everyone's somewhat correct. They want him to say he's a crazy. Only Malice seems to be the one that's talking about how Putin's not a crazy person. Everyone else is like, oh, he's not rational. And even Mises talks about, in praxeology, about even irrational people, to them, they are reacting in a rational way. So there's logic and sense that goes on to it. So I think Putin is not necessarily irrational. I don't know what his end game is. Seems a little odd, but it doesn't mean you're a Putin apologist. So anyway, check that one out. Tybee does a good job. Then the boys at the end go on and on a bit about other stuff when he's not in their presence. So, okay, we're going to join another one. This is how we're going to do this today. We're going to just join some episodes. This was one I'd watched a while ago, but we're going to do off of video, audio only. Tommy Salmons, one of my favorites. Actually, I've been really enjoying him a lot lately. MK Ultra Eugenics with Patrick MacFarlane, and Patrick had a conversation with him. I'm just going to join it midway through, and let's enjoy it and go, boy.
Like, how do these people not see it? If you take the wars, for example, and you get all this blowback, right? And if somebody with my education and in my ability to research and finance, which is none, can come to the conclusion like, hey, the more you arm these groups, the more friction you're causing around the world, which causes more strife on the American people. and then you turn around and you act like 9/11 was a big surprise.
Right.
Like, no, I don't buy it. Like, I don't buy it. You just don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
You just don't fucking care. And if you're to a point that you don't care.
Can I just say what a perfect segue? It just happened to click on this area, and he's talking about blowback, which we just talked about with Ron Paul. It's amazing. And by the way, he's not an apologist for 9/11. All he is doing here is talking about why people, we have shows, right, about serial killers. It's not just a show about a serial killer is not necessarily, oh, we caught him and here's how we caught him. It's mostly about why are you doing this? You know, people talk about motive. That's a big deal, even though it doesn't really matter, but it gives us an insight as to why people are doing what. I mean, 9/11 happened because they didn't like our meddling in the Middle East. And it's important to understand that so you don't do it again the next time. If you think it is really about freedom fries and something else, then you're going to be wrong. Let's just play just a little bit more of Tommy Salmons and Patrick MacFarlane.
Like if you're in government, if you're like, let's say you're a parent, all right, let's just take it down to the smallest common denominator, right? Let's say you're a parent and you know that if you go next door and you shoot your neighbor, his children are then going to be hunting down your children for the rest of their lives, and you do it anyway, then you're probably fucking evil because you don't give a shit.
Right.
You just don't fucking care. And I can say evil while they had evil. I'm not saying evil like they had like evil ends in mind. It's just they didn't care what the consequences to their actions were. They don't care. And so I can accept.
All right, let's just pause it there because I've got a lot of stuff to do. Amazing snip into that one. Great job, Tommy. I didn't really get to hear Patrick in there. Check out Patrick's Liberty Weekly and also my interview with him as well that we already had at one point. He had another one here. I could do, maybe I'll just jump in with this. He had a conspiracy theories one with Dan Smots. I thought it was really good. Dan had a really good point there. I wanted to, months ago, I even tweeted it out, kind of how people fight, but we, the normal, the people that he likes and me, it's like, embrace others that are doing well. And it's just a feeding. And I'm like, yeah, it was such a great comment. The likelihood that I'm going to clip it and find it, unlikely. So we'll just keep going on here. This one though, I wanted to do a whole dive here on Patrick MacFarlane, talking about Vietnam and the video. I think I talked about it at one point, just a little bit, but the documentary, and I've talked about that before. Let's just join Patrick MacFarlane in here talking about body count, the U.S. kill campaign in Vietnam, episode 198.
If he didn't, the dominoes would all topple. We know now that, in fact, Eisenhower and his closest advisors did not really believe that. In fact, they had
what he's doing, he's playing a clip here, so maybe we'll go off it because he plays a bunch of great
in the region.
Stuff. That,
definitely a book that you all should read, and I have a copy here somewhere. But yeah, so Kill Anything That Moves, I started reading it. I wasn't able to finish it, but just the introduction is something that is gives you the gist of it. So introduction, an operation, not an aberration. On January 21st, 1971, a Vietnam veteran named Charles McDuff wrote a letter to President Richard Nixon to voice his disgust with the American war in Southeast Asia. McDuff had witnessed multiple cases of Vietnamese civilians being abused and killed by American soldiers and their allies, and he had found the U.S. military justice system to be woefully ineffective in punishing wrongdoers. Quote, maybe your advisors have not clued you in, he told the president, but the atrocities that were committed in My Lai are eclipsed by similar American actions throughout the country. His 3-page handwritten missive concluded with an impassioned plea to Nixon to end the American participation in the war. The White House forwarded the note to the Department of Defense for a reply, and within a few weeks, Major General Franklin Davis Jr., the Army's Director of Military Personnel Policies, wrote back to McDuff, it was, quote, indeed unfortunate, said Davis, that some incidents occur within combat zones. He then shifted the burden of responsibility for what had happened firmly back onto the veteran.
So look, you don't always hit a home run or even a single, but I tried to join that in there, and that's what happened. Okay. I had another one here where I was going to show you. I just pulled that up, and I think we're just going to skip that. Let's go to my episode here with Liberty Dad. Maybe just cut in real quickly here, and there we go. Pretty. Okay. let's see if we can hear some commentary from DL and myself. My episode, what was it called here? Talking to Tyler Yonke, Raising Leaders, Thought Criminals. This, by the way, it was a fantastic episode. So I do encourage you all to go and watch it.
Talking about what's the gist that we're getting toward, at least, so I can start putting everything into context. Then I have a little bit trouble being interested, and I think that may be mostly what was at play. But it's been a long time. I mean, it's probably been 4 or 5 years since I tried to read the book.
So what's interesting, I just had some thoughts here about books and not finishing them, and I have a real problem with that. And I think it's the mindset of, for me growing up, of like, hey, you finish your whole meal, you don't leave food on the plate. And I think that mentality had led to obesity as far as a lot of people in America, because then they started to have, certain restaurants that would just have a ginormous servings, and you've got this mindset of not, it's not good to finish it, whatever. Books, I have the same problem. So it's good that you're able to somewhat turn that off. And I think it's fine. I remember the first book this brother or cousin's husband sent to me, and I decided not to finish. It was one of the first books I decided just to put it down. It was horrible. It was all in like this person's mind. All right. We don't need to keep hearing about that. Just to emphasize there, my concern is that I have this feeling that I have to finish a book. I don't know that I always speak correctly, which is scary because I do this for a living as an attorney. But I really enjoyed talking with DL. Good conversation. And I think you'll get something out of that. So I will once again put the links to that one in there. Okay, we're going to go on a few other ones. Jose had Keith Knight on his show, the Anarchist Handbook, and I think I'm just going to play some of these here. Look, Jose, I was on Jose's show, and I was like, hey, you could have had me on. Actually, Keith did a great job, but part of the Hasnas thing is talking about how you basically the whole idea of going to law school, at least in my mind, is teaching you to be an attorney and to think like one. So part of that has to do with what they're going to talk about here, I think. And gentlemen, just to do it so we playback speed, we'll up it a little bit, just a little bit there. There we go, and go.
That laws are insane. There's so many laws and so many different decidings on different court cases that are used as precedent in other cases. That there really is a convolute. You can come to basically whatever conclusion you want, and you're not necessarily wrong. So yeah, I don't know if you have anything on that one. We do have, like I said, I pointed out the examples with like he says, what Professor Kingsfield knows but will never reveal to students, that both Arnie and Ann's analysis are correct. It's the whole idea, and he does go into how logic works, and the idea, I guess we could say, let me see if I can find it. In the legal world, however, the assumption does not hold. This is because, unlike the laws of nature, political laws are not consistent. The law human beings create to regulate their conduct is made up of incompatible, contradictory rules and principles. As anyone who has studied a little logic can demonstrate, any conclusion can be validly derived from a set of contradictory premises. That means that a logically sound argument can be found for any legal conclusion.
So just to skip to part 4, because what he's doing is saying there are a number of legal real world legal cases that have come to different conclusions because judges over time have come to different interpretations, just as you did in the first example of what does freedom of speech mean, what does the right to bear arms mean. Judges also disagree. Right now on the Supreme Court, we have 9 people, and they don't agree on abortion, they don't agree on gun control, they don't agree on freedom of speech. So if we can't get 9 people who've studied the legal system to agree, how do you think we're going to get 330 million people to?
Excellent. And I hope that there wasn't an echo in on that one because I didn't mute myself this fucking program. Now, look, Keith, it just reminds me how great Keith is. I had him on my show, love him, and how smart he is. And it's probably better, him, even as a non-attorney, probably did better than I would have done there. But I just want to make some emphasis here. You go to law school, you have cases, you got to take one side or another. And sometimes you're more prone to be, the left or the right. And it can play out and kind of how you think on different things, but you have to make arguments either way. And your teachers or even the bar exam, when you're taking those, they don't care which side you're taking. It's just if you can make those arguments, and that's kind of what they're talking about there in those cases. And there's a lot, because a lot of laws are really subjective. You got to make an analysis and do this. It's not like strict liability laws, which is like a dog bite law, as an example. Doesn't matter. Dog was provoked into it. If dog doesn't have a defense, it's just, did it happen? If so, there's liability. There you go. Okay. Man, my Twitter's blowing up right now. I wonder what's going on. I went after some Hoppians. Dude, there was this TikTok guy that Dave Smith had talked about, because Hassan Piker had gone after this guy about something, and now this guy is just spurging out online, and he's kind of being real cringy. So I made some comments to him, and most of it is me just making jokes. And then I was basically like, what are the odds that those people that Hans himself would kick out these people first from his community that have his name in their profile, because a lot of them are cringe as can be, and he would probably like get out of my community. Okay, what else we got here? This was Kyle. I haven't really watched this one very much. This has been a while. It was a few weeks ago. This one is called In Liberty and Health with Jonathan Howe. I just hope I can remember all these people when I go to put them into the things. This one, we're going to just kind of learn together. So we will jump right into the middle, see what this guy, I think Jonathan Howe is running for some sort of office. So we'll probably miss out on all of that. See if we have anything of interest here as we do this random winging.
For grass-fed, grass-finished beef, right? Regenerative agriculture. Have you heard a lot about that? And to kind of tag on to that, I feel like there's a lot of room in New York, because New York isn't just New York City, right? There's a lot of rural areas in New York, and I'm sure there's a lot of farms up there. Are you aware of anything kind of like that in New York?
So what you were just bringing up, that's how all agriculture would be if we actually had a proper system, like a libertarian system of property rights. And people say, oh, that's just idealistic. I can't remember the name of the case, but I will come back to you with it. It's one of the big tort law cases that I read in tort law, and it was in Arizona, north of Phoenix, where they started opening the big industrial cattle farms. Just tens of thousands of cows just in the middle of the desert. They feed them all from the troughs, and it smells terrible. And the people had a development, and then all of a sudden this cattle farm opened next to it, and the smell was horrible, so they sued them for nuisance, for destroying the value of their property. And the court said, like, no, it's a farming area now. Like you just have to sell. Or they worked it out maybe somehow where the residents paid for the cows to move or something like that. But just this idea of the courts giving deference to business because they are businesses, or because it's a local industry. A local judge favors a local industry. And there's nothing that you can appeal on. Even back to like the Industrial Revolution, when they were letting these huge smoke billowing factories in the middle of cities open up. There's court cases being like, well, it's an industrial area. You should expect to like have your lungs destroyed when you walk through there, even though it's a public street. And that's not how it should work. If we actually care about private property, if someone's putting smoke from their factory onto your house next door, they've invaded your property. They put something into your property, and you should be able to enjoin them from doing that. You should be able to go to a court and say, stop them. And that's what would happen to all of these factory farms, because the runoff from these things is disgusting. The amount of antibiotics that gets into the water, the sludge that gets into the water, it's absolutely disgusting, and there's often no coming back from it. If something like that has been near you, but also to go to the cow fart.
We're not going to hear about the cow farts, but that is very interesting because, and then I'll check out more of that show. Just thinking about that there. Look, if the government isn't playing favorites for this, right, you're probably not going to have the scenario he said, and a lot of the industrial stuff is just going to be okay. But it also is annoying when you have a farm or you have something out in the middle of nowhere, and then the rural area starts moving in, and now they're upset about what's been there forever, and maybe the guy built his farm out in the middle of effing nowhere to that. So those are complicated things, and who has some solutions for those is Rothbard, Hoppian, Hans Hermann Hoppe, and probably even a few other people at the Mises Institute. So that's Kyle in Liberty and Health with Jonathan Howe, I think it was. Check that one out as well. Here's another one that I had a really good time checking out this guy's podcast on Spotify. I think that's the only place I was able to find it. And he interviewed Jack Casey, who is an author. And there was a fascinating conversation. Jack just seems like he was really having a good time. Let me see if we can join this one in as well. Once again, we're just randomly joining these things because to actually take on much more of it, it means I have to do more work. So let's find this out. Yeah, I'm not logged in. Big deal. Imagination, a world of Jack's of its own with Jack Casey. This is Part and Will podcast, and I do like his podcast. He has a good way of going about it.
Listen, Game of Thrones is a good comparison, by the way, as far as like some of the tone or style in some regards. In many ways, it's very different, but I'm glad. Same here. It's like I always want these deeper concepts going on, right? These ideas the characters are wrestling with.
Yeah.
But then I also want just some cool off shit.
Fun
Like,
stuff.
then I'm like, but there's also swords and magic and just badass stuff. So I want both.
Well,
I want it to be that when they're slugging it out, you're like, entire philosophical disagreements between them with each strike, like there's this meaning behind every sword swing, or something going on.
Well, there is, I mean, you think about, I think about that too. And not everything is what's the thing? A lifetime drama, which is kind of what you described. But then you have like these weird, like if you were to, and we'll get into this in a minute. Hold on a second. I got a dog barking in the background. I don't know if you can hear that.
My dog was getting ready to earlier too. He still might.
Okay, I tell you what. Let's take a quick break. Let me take him out.
So they're about as organized as me. We'll drop in at one more other spot here and see if we have some more interesting info.
It's true that they fucked up the end, but man, there's a good 5 or 6 seasons of just pure awesome that you're like, this is
all right. So
amazing.
Quick side ring. Let me just jump in real quick because I gotta know your thoughts on this. Because you obviously watched it, and I'm assuming you read it, or at least you know the story. I avoided Game of Thrones because I was so scared that whatever I had written and planned out, they already did better, and so I didn't want to know because I was like, please God, don't ruin what I've written. That is the sole reason why I've never touched it, because I didn't want to see something that did it better than I did.
Oh no, I had the same fear. Oh, absolutely.
Okay, yeah,
in
thank
fact,
God.
No, I there were times where I would hold off on something because I thought I don't want it to influence my voice.
Yes,
what I'm trying to do.
That was my thing. I was like, I don't want to start thinking this is better, and I got to start.
We'll let that go there. Actually, good stuff, and I've been listening to his podcast as well. He's interviewed some libertarian people, and then he talks. He's an artist, and he talks just like that. Really interesting conversation with Jack there. But I thought that part, as I jump in there and I find nuggets to have there. I don't even remember what they were talking about. So that's what you got. No, I'm sorry. Now it's coming back to me. I'm talking about, sometimes I do that with podcasts. I'm like, I don't want to hear something because I want to create it my own content, and I don't want to be persuaded by some things like that. So I totally get where you're going there with writing as well. But yeah, podcasts. Let's do this one. This is the Voluntary Vixens podcast, which I never actually, I said, I'm going to listen to this podcast, and I haven't listened to it. Okay. Which is a problem. But it's shared up here, and then because I still plan on listening. Maybe I'll do it on the plane ride tomorrow. This is the Voluntary Vixens, who have never listened to any of their shows. Episode 104, Strengthening the Individual Literally with Mindpump. Sal. The only reason I'm saying this is probably good. My wife listens to Sal all the time, watches his show almost daily, his podcast on YouTube. And then she works out to it. She loves it. We go to a restaurant that's literally I could hit it with my 9, but it's like a minute's drive from us, and it's his uncle's. So we've got a little bit of a connection there. And so I would love to see. Anyway, Sal's into bodybuilding and everything. He just did an interview with Tony Robbins, which I thought was actually very fascinating. Good stuff. So let's hear what this one has to say.
A lot of people are wondering.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I think the point about like. It's very appropriate that you guys especially were like, trying to give your audience how to deal with being imprisoned. And that's exactly what the government did to all of us. And so that's a pretty, even though, we kind of talked about it, we were basically being imprisoned, and, it felt like we were stuck in a cage. I mean, I kind of tried to go live my life as much as I possibly could, but, was working remotely because everybody was scared to death. And, but I mean, wow. I think it goes to show like just how important that is, and that aspect. And then, for them to have closed down gyms. And, I think I listened to Ian Smith was on a podcast, and that's his name, right? Achilles Gym.
Yep.
And totally didn't know about him, but he was in prison. And that's when he got into fitness. And that whole like person, that figurehead that we know, and like, the brave voice he's been throughout this whole episode, this era, like fitness was what got him to kind of turn his life around and improve the lives of so many other people. So
yeah, it's the most unassuming yet one of the most effective personal growth tools
that you can ever use. Nothing's perfect, right? So you could abuse exercise, you could have a dysfunctional relationship with it, with body images and stuff like that. But done properly, it's such an effective personal growth tool, and it's unassuming because if most people don't approach fitness even realizing that that's going to happen, right? So most people will do a spiritual practice.
I'm going to leave it there, but Sal actually tweeted something similar to that online today about body shaming, and they're doing that with fit people. Like, oh, it's kind of like the Russia thing, right? Where if you're pro fitness, it also means that you must be body shaming. You can't just be pro fitness. But check that out. Sal, he's somewhat libertarian. My wife, that's why she loves him. Well, she loves him for many reasons. But one of those, he's always wearing Ron Paul t-shirts and stuff. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. Let's go to this one. This one was, let's see if we get it kicked off of YouTube for this. This one. We're going to go to Tim Dillon having a little bit of a show here. Tim Dillon fired Whoopi Goldberg, Flagrant 2 with Andrew Shulz and Akaash Singh. I got a few Akaash Singh things that I had watched. So I just thought let's start with this one.
Santa Barbara is basically like super wealthy people that want to be down to earth.
That's right.
As long as they're around enough super wealthy people, they can all let their guard down and stop pretending to be wealthy.
That's
hey,
right.
We're all fucking billionaires. Let's just wear whatever. Okay.
Right.
Let's just wear sandals. Let's just
Yeah.
go to the
I'm in
farmer's market.
flip-flops.
I'm cool.
Right.
I'm chill. I'm relaxed.
Yeah.
Interesting conceptually. It's
Right.
fun. Right. But the funny thing is Meghan and Harry went there. And when they go to like San Ysidro Ranch to eat, this is a safe fan. You're familiar with the ranch. Yeah. So like when they go, they want to shut down the whole ranch just so they can eat. And the reaction from the people in Santa Barbara is like, you're not even the richest person here. Like
You're not even royalty anymore.
Like, what are you
They're
doing?
frauds, and they're not even good at it, right? So they're not even good at
Wait,
it.
what do you mean they're frauds?
They're complete frauds. I mean,
He's a prince. Well, kind of.
Well, he's a prince, but
half blood.
You know, when I say they're frauds, I mean they purport to have left the UK because of racism.
Yes.
And come to America where we all know there's none.
None at all.
No racism. So they left one country that's
Yeah.
racist.
Yeah,
Came to
yeah.
another country that's not racist. And they have a deal with Netflix.
Yeah.
And they're producing shows on Netflix about like female empowerment. Just say you want to be
rich.
The LA rich. Just say
yeah.
you don't want to eat fish pudding in the rain, like the inbred freaks that you live with, and say you want to be Montecito rich. You want to be 75 and sunny rich.
Can you explain to me why anybody would give a production deal to two people that have never produced anything?
Well, they gave it to the Obamas, right? They gave it to people who...
I'd give it to the Obamas.
I would too.
I'd give it to them before I give it to Harry.
The
They
mark
produced
is not
something.
experience.
And
the mark
Obama
is not
is-
experience.
But what am I watching?
All right, we're done there, but I wouldn't give it to Obama's. He said production, and then he went to Obama's. But yeah, whatever. That's on the Royals. This is one about ending pet tricks. Do I dare play this one? I think we're gonna have to play it. But did I already play this one? I don't know. We'll try this. Look, it's been a while since I've looked at all my notes here, but let's try this one. Jip, joining in progress. No, it's not taking it for some reason. Well, maybe I've tried too many.
People
here
watching,
we go.
maybe they're not as familiar. Santa Barbara is basically like super wealthy people that want to be down to earth.
That's right.
As long as they're around enough super wealthy people, they can all let their guard down and stop pretending to be wealthy.
That's
hey,
right.
we're all fucking billionaires. Let's just wear whatever. Okay.
Right.
Let's just wear sandals. Let's just
Yeah.
go to the
I'm in
farmer's market.
flip-flops.
I'm cool. I'm
Right.
chill. I'm relaxed.
Yeah.
Interesting conceptually. It's
Right.
fun. Right. But the funny thing is Meghan and Harry went there.
I don't know why I keep playing overlapping one. But one more here. Okay. Akaash Singh, he did it on special. I'm going to play a few bit of this because I was enjoying it. And then I was like, oh, dude, I don't think you make any sense. But, it's funny people trying to be funny. And he's okay. He was on Joe Rogan. He's okay. But let's try this one.
Some motherfuckers got rid of a poo. How you gonna cancel a poo, dog? I miss a poo. You guys remember a poo, the Indian guy that owned the convenience store in The Simpsons? He was a staple of my childhood. And then all of a sudden, 4 brown dudes wanted to fuck white girls and tried to make him racist. And then they just canceled this motherfucker. What was racist about a poo? Here is a brown man married to a beautiful brown woman, owns his own business, selling overpriced products to unwitting white people. Apu is not racist. He's the American dream. The only thing that offended my parents about Apu was I'm not Apu. I'll be like, well, what about his accent? Doesn't that offend you? And they would be like, your accent offends me. Have you heard yourself speak Hindi? It's embarrassing. Man, these fucking brown A-list millionaires. Oh, because of Apu, I got made fun of in my childhood. Welcome to childhood, bitch. What do you think this is for everybody else? You think they were carrying the Korean kid on their shoulders after calculus? No, they cheat off that motherfucker and then ignore him until the next pop quiz. The Korean kid at my school, they didn't even know his name. You know what they called him? Chinese. That's right. They didn't care.
All right, enough. A good set, and I only play that to set up the next one here, where I think you go, wait, what just happened? I know people try to be funny and political, but here's kind of his next set about being double vaccinated, and it's not like what you think. All right. For some reason, it's not wanting to play here, and I didn't share the screen either way. Let's see if we could do it here. This is how you do it here, Tyler. Really oddly, it's not wanting to play for me, and I don't understand what the deal is. We have good internet. Sometimes this happens. My son might be playing too many games, so we'll let it sit there for a little bit. Maybe pick itself up. Double check that. Well, there you go. We don't need to have a quality up to 21K speed. There we go. Let's try this.
Service announcement. I am double vaccinated, but I don't think you should yell at every person who doesn't want to get the vaccine. There they are. Get them. Whole black kid got nervous. No, I'm being serious, dude. I don't think you should yell at a person just because they don't want to get the vaccine. Unless they're fat. Now I got a problem with you. Oh, now you care about your health? Now, when you can kill more than just you, all of a sudden, you're health conscious. You're on 4 blood pressure medications, and now you don't trust Big Pharma. Your blood type is Lipitor, and now you don't trust medicine, huh? Look, if you are against the vaccine, but you are a personal trainer who watches everything you put in your body, at least you're consistent. But if you're about to lose your foot anyway, take the shot. Talking all about, I'm worried about my quality of life. You can't even walk a flight of steps. Quality of life. You sleep with a CPAP machine.
All right, not too bad. But here's my problem is, one, people that say that they are not taking the vaccine, are they saying that now they're concerned about their health? Maybe not. My thing is actually use that on people that do want to get vaccinated. I'm like, or that are pushing that, you're going to kill everyone. I'm like, dude, you've had 2 years, now it's even longer, to step your health up. Stop it. You're the obese one. I'm not trying to play comedy games here, but I don't think that's it. He said, they're worried about their health, but they're not taking the vaccine. I don't know. Or maybe they are. I don't know. Was it good? It was okay. It was decent. Okay, we're going to end on 2 of them here. These ones were fantastic. Okay. This was a recent one. Glenn Beck, who, yes, I do like Glenn Beck. He had on Adam Curry, who's the king of the podcast father, whatever. We're going to play just a few clips here to start in with Glenn introducing Adam Curry, which I think is great, and then kind of their stuff a little later on.
Guest is the Podfather, the original podcaster. His podcast, The Daily Source Code, aired in 2004, and as you will hear, changed the world as we know it. The tagline for the first ever podcast was where developers and users party together. Shortly after, he was name dropped by Steve Jobs. Then in 2007, shortly after the launch of the first iPhone, he launched his podcast, No Agenda, with a journalist friend that he had made through his media company. They came up with the idea during a 4-minute phone call. The original tagline was no sponsors, no jingles, and of course, no agenda. He wanted to start a show that offered an alternative to the agenda pollution of the news media. Little did he know podcasting would destroy legacy media as we know it. No Agenda is still running. I thought I knew him until I started doing research. He has had an amazing life. He grew up in Holland. He got his start on Dutch pirate radio. He was a VJ on MTV. But the biggest thing he did for MTV was register the domain name, mtv.com. He did it in 93. At one point, he lived in a castle in Belgium, thanks to all the money he has made as an early tech innovator. Best of all, he has found a way to not get canceled. Today on the podcast, Adam Curry. If the last 2 years have taught us anything, is that we have to be in.
All right. I just thought, first of all, the intro there was pretty fantastic by Glenn. Then he does a little commercial here, and then we're going to join a few spots in place. Once again, I don't know where we're at, but it was actually a fantastic interview. Once again, I wanted to set up Glenn's intro just to show you because I knew a lot about Adam. I've seen him on some shows, and I wanted to show you what the research that he had actually done. We know about the MTV thing, or maybe we don't know about that, but that's one thing. Glenn, and anyway, it was a fantastic interview. Let's go join it in progress, seeing what these two schlubs have to say about each other.
We've built this out into a digital royalty system where you, as the podcaster, can say, okay, I want 10% to go to my producer, 20% to the sidekick or whatever, and 5% to my mom who invested in the, and they can all have their own digital wallets. And again, it goes not through anybody, goes directly from that person to them. And this is sweeping the podcasting space. Newpodcastapps.com is where you can get them. And it's all open source. The whole project is funded by people who just want to fund the project. And so now you cannot be deplatformed, either your show itself or from the financial system. And excellent. I have great optimism for the older millennials because I was.
We're going to stop there. Damn it. I actually joined that one probably about half a minute or so too late because he talks about what he calls podcast 2.0. And he described it just a little bit there, but you think about your podcast app and you can like click and say, I want to listen to this guy or maybe this episode. And as you listen to it, it takes so much of your funds to do so. So 20 minutes could be so much of $1 or X or whatever and on. Pause in the middle. That's all you've done. And the point is, he was talking about it goes directly to that person through the app to them, where you're not going through a pay processor, you're not going through Patreon, and that person and basically trying to help you digitally to be uncancelable. Good podcast there. And we're the last one we're going to hear. Man, I like this one too, and I like a lot of these podcasts. This is our buddy Jason Booth, who has his own podcast. He was then he joins in a lot with Rebel with the Cause, Eric. Eric calls him as Jamie, such as the person that helps out with Jamie on Joe Rogan. Dude knows a lot, and this was a pretty fun interview. Partly because Jason just knows shit. He just knows stuff. I don't know if he's Googling at the time, but he says it, and I tend to believe him. He may be wrong. But let's join these guys at the beginning. We'll do a little bit of their intro. Typo and Luke, and then Jace Booth, episode 139 on biting the bullet.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
What we do not do is spy unlawfully on Americans. We are leaving in 2014, period. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse.
in order to fight and defeat this therapy for Typo and I than it is for anybody else
Oh,
to
yeah.
listen to. So
Oh, very much so. I understand that one.
it's
What's
a
your
good time.
podcast called?
Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable Discussion.
That's so long.
It's obnoxious. It's obnoxiously long. I know. And if you're dyslexic, then like it spells out farted like AFRTD. So yeah, it's
nice.
It's
That's
obnoxious.
nice. That's fucking dope. How long have you guys been doing that?
Since January 2017.
Oh damn. Well, you guys lasted fucking forever.
Yeah, it was like it was born out of a Telegram group. You know, it was just like, again, it was just a smoke pit. It was hanging out. It was talking shit. Our Telegram chat, somebody'd bring up something, and then, you know, we'd all chime in on it. And then it's just like, hey, we should start a podcast. And everybody's like, that's a good idea. Narrator voice, it was not a good idea.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's what I say, man. I'm like, I don't know if this is a good idea, but I thought it was at the time, so I'm gonna keep doing it.
Yeah,
it's funny how
it's pretty
works out
funny
like
though. Well, we went from like putting out an episode every week just for fun to like now people bitch at us if we miss a week.
You know,
and I'm like,
Yeah,
all
right.
chill out.
like we did it every other week. Like we had a couple of single moms that did the show, and, you know, with babysitting and all that, they couldn't do it every week. So it was like every other week, and then like some entered BS drama, and they took off, and then it was like, okay, well, let's
All
just
right,
keep doing it
Jason,
every other
we
week.
get it. So let's just join a little bit later on. I just wanted to kind of get an understanding of who Jason is.
Oh wow.
Right. Yeah. Only like 7 countries have met that of the 30.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's one of the reasons why Trump
that's why
wanted
the
to get
U.S.
out.
gives so much firearms and so much weaponry to foreign countries.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jesus,
they get to make money off of it too.
Yes.
Well, and so what have you heard that speech from Putin where he's talking about him talking with Bill Clinton in 2000 about Russia trying to join NATO? Have you seen that speech?
No.
So there's a speech out there where he's talking about it, and Bill Clinton just flat out told him no, apparently. Like, no, you guys can't join.
NATO was created to counter Russia.
Right. But so that's the thing. So
But I think the Russians thought that maybe since it was against the Soviet Union, they could get in on it because
Right.
now it's not the Soviet Union. We're different now.
Right. And you know, like, what a better way to end some of the suffering in the region than bringing that under your wing. So it's like, all right, if you want to be part of NATO, you have to come into these kind of set of ideals, or not ideals, but these at least peace treaties with allies. You know what I mean? Like, that just seems like a very easy way to have a little bit more control over a country. And this is my whole thing is the people that are, you know, in those crazy high positions, presidents, fucking world leaders of any kind, they need a boogeyman. It's what we were talking about. They need a boogeyman, and that's the only way they can justify their.
A great take there, guys. Okay, I think we're just gonna call it quits for the night on that. So, what do we have coming up? Well, I am going to. Oh, sorry about sharing that there. I'm going to keep doing my job. Keep doing this podcast. I still have some idea. I have great ideas. Once again, and are we going to get to them? Possibly one day. Other than that, so we got some recap there. Some of the other ones I'm working on. Maybe I should just go to my podcast feed here. Overcast.fm is the one I use, and I could kind of lay out. Karen Baldwin? She did a very good one here. It's called Rethinking. There we go. Rethinking a Reformed Christian View of Culture. Dare to Think. That's what her podcast is. She did a thing against Walter Block. A really good podcast. I'm trying to remember. I think it was Antony Sammeroff. She had him on. It was really good. And I should play clips of that. Maybe I'll just have to try to find it and actually play it. Abuse. She did Jacob Winograd as well. A few other people, and that's going to take me to her. No, there we go. Interpersonal dialogue with. Let's play some of that because I think it's last one. It'll be worthwhile to do a little bit of this one. Her podcast is maybe almost overly produced. That's the only thing I would say, but it's a good thing here.
It's okay to busket and to play with your wrists sagging when you're playing something easy. And that goes for everything, obviously, guitar, for anything that requires skill. okay, you might get away with doing bad habits, but if you want to play at an advanced level, you can't have bad habits. If you want to have extraordinary relationships, it requires extraordinary communication skills.
Yeah. So, well, let me ask you this, because, it seems like, first of all, everybody requires relationships, right? On one degree or another. And libertarians often get accused of being atomistic in their individualism. And it's like, no.
That old one, not that old one again.
Yeah. Of the libertarian thinkers that I'm aware of, none of them actually believe that we're our own private islands. Like, we need each other. That's the only way that any of our principles can actually play out.
Well, the principles are for living in community. If you go and live in a desert island on your own, what the hell relevance is the NAP? None.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, we've got these principles because we know that an individual must enter a society.
All right. Thanks, Antony. Appreciate it. Good stuff there. Some stuff to quality advice to end the week on. Hope everyone's doing good. I'm going to go out with, I'm going to play a little song here, perhaps. But we're going to go out. Hope it's not too loud, folks. Whatever. We're probably going to get gypped out here on YouTube. I mean, on our show. Thanks, everybody. Episode, I think, 35, the Libertarian Podcast Review. Join us next time as we review your favorite podcasts, maybe have some guests on. Once again, I'm going to do my Kill Liberty idea, my Kill Tony, right? Bring someone on, let a bunch of people in, and they can trash, have them 1 minute to do something, and then we can maybe trash them. Thanks, everybody. See ya next time.
I just started live streaming. Cut me some slack. I'm pretty high tech for a boomer. But anyways,
boomer.